Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 25th, and you can see we're still sideways. We're easing off on the shakeout readings. We had been in this little short move right here, but we've got a reset of the DOC from a midterm, short-term buyers, but we're still falling from long-term, but it was a decent extreme. So this confluence of mixed events holding things up, not overly bearish, but certainly isn't turnaround. What we're seeing though is the ATR, you can see it continuing to drop, which means the general range of volatility has been very low because there's just a lot of uncertainty and there's no real justification to run, despite what you hear everyone saying. The real effects of what's happened with both the hurricanes, whether growth is continuing, whether the Fed now is going to increase rates, and is inflation starting to actually have an impact with, when I say inflation, I'm more concerned about constriction in labor resulting in higher prices, or whether or not you're actually filling in with some of that surplus excess labor that's existed for people who haven't been counted. And so those are what I think the market is really weighing into, not to mention the fact that they're calculating into a multiple of potential growth. What will tax policy look like? Will anything get done? Will there be a repeal? There's just so many things that we can go on this list of we don't knows. And do you sell the I don't know, or do you buy the I don't know? In this particular case, I think the market is pretty much saying that they're undecided going forward into the beginning of the new year as to how that will look. And generally, the idea of going into anything else isn't that appealing when the potential for rising rates into soft growth, these are problems. But it's not proved to be some catalyst to, run. We finally have seen a resurgence of the NASDAQ readings here, in the sense that they've gotten extremely oversold and are finally turning around a little bit. And so that's really going to be the test. Not a coincidence that we're right at the ABM green, and that becomes the pivot point. Below, obviously, you would want to be short, and above, staying long. And Euro pulling back a little bit, that's going to give it a little bit. This is so elevated compared to general range where we should be back down towards that 115, 118 range is even still considered high, though some think that that's more of a baseline. But I think the reality is that this is providing some cover for the U.S. market as well. Keeping it elevated there certainly helps. There was no surprises in the German election, other than Merkel's party did not do nearly as well as some expected. So it's not going to have a change now, but I think that it could foretell future issues, and whether and how their government continues is going to be something I think that will affect the European Union, as the power of Germany may be slightly diminished as far as autocratic nature, but that remains to be seen. There certainly is no strength from Italian. We had Theresa May here in Florence. Saw her the other day. She came to give a wonderful speech on the divorce and how happy she is that the EU is going to continue on and do great. Sort of the conversation you have every girlfriend that you break up with. We want to be friends. You have such a great future ahead of you, but we're going to be doing it separately. It was quite fun. She came to a dinner that we had over here in Santo Spirito, in the outdoor piazza. It was all quite fun. TLT, again, still elevated from where they were way back. We should still be down in this range down here, but for now, still remaining elevated. And this is part of that uncertainty equation that people are just trying to put money on the sidelines to just see. And those are always late to the equation. This is still considered elevated, though we have some improvement, both from the shakeout, oversold. So you could see a little mini rally in here. Just don't expect it to do much at this particular point. I think oil is really going to be the key one here, and if we continue to rise on that, definitely going to put some inflationary pressures that we're not seeing in the U.S. economy at this particular point. I think the effects of both hurricanes haven't been as severe as some might have thought, and that actually could bode well for future growth and expansion. Gold, we knew this retrace was going to fill in there. We'd gotten below on the extremes. Shakeout, reset, complete reset of everything. We're waiting for an orange dip down there, and maybe it could come at the same time we get across. The early rise of the short-term buyers, though, is unlikely to hold on this one. And typically what happens when you get this early a move without a corresponding midterm or long-term buyer interaction, you end up getting any pop tends to fade back and will retest. And the key is to see it retest on higher extremes, and at that point, then it becomes your attractive buying point at that level. And here we can see big rise in the pre-market there with the German situation, and of course it's all filled back in on those positive extremes, took out that low, and now it's rebuilding and looking for a new setup. So the short came in just at the right spot. It actually started a little earlier to end the weekend, but they took out some of the key points right there, came right back up to the highs for the Thursday, and then retraced it all and just filled it right back in. So a little bit better ranges intraday on some of these moves. It's just not producing any directional movement. So for now, it's a intraday day traders kind of move situation, as little as that's been, waiting for what will be the breakout, and we just keep waiting for the indicators to solidify in a direction. And not be afraid. You can't assume that it's going to stay like this, because it's unlikely to. We get consolidation periods, and then there's a breakout from there, and usually we get the heads up from the reading as that happens, and we still remain generally bullish on this. Of course, now 25 becomes the resistance on the ES here, and from there we can play back and forth, and that becomes just really a nice pivot point, which is exactly what other traders are going to be utilizing it. So we'll just follow the readings as they come in and wait for this uncertainty period to start to fade and give us a little directional momentum. As always, though, continue to look for me on the Skype chat. Trade well.